Do you want to be front and center? Or I don't think we call him Mary now.
great seeing you.
Happy 10 years. And
I know.
I want to reach over and hug Reese, but not make sure who I am. And I'm like, you know when you know somebody, like,
Just explain
yeah,
to you
exactly.
her. Yeah.
I will after. It was a little awkward.
No, I get it.
But I will when she's standing up.
I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
Sarah knows you're here?
Yeah, oh, yeah. We said
Okay,
hi.
great.
Yeah.
My stepson is 18 years old.
Shopping
Welcome to the beautiful Music Academy of the West. On behalf of the Paskin Family Foundation, we're thrilled to have you for an evening with Kelly Corrigan and Claire Corrigan Lichty. A few housekeeping items: restrooms outside, through the lobby stage left. Please make sure your cell phones are on silent, but note that this is a casual environment. Based on how many F-bombs I dropped the last time Kelly was here in town, please take pictures, take notes, talk with your friends, settle in as though you were wearing a pair of sweats or a jumpsuit. Also, start thinking about questions that you want to ask. Kelly and Claire will do a presentation here, follow the slides, and then they're going to do Q&A here. There are 2 microphones set up. Ask as many questions as you want. After the program concludes, we'll have wine and a mixer out in the courtyard again. There are a few books in the lobby that are left from the last event. Please take one. Marianne the Maker will be released on June 3rd. It's pre-ordered at Chaucer's. You'll get an email of how you can pick it up. 1 copy will be for you. Another copy will be donated to local elementary schools, libraries, children's focused nonprofits, and fire victims in the LA area. Okay, I always tell a story. So last spring, I hosted Kelly here in Santa Barbara, and it was awesome, so much fun, and I chalked it up to a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, just once. Hold that memory in your head. In the fall, my email got hacked because I clicked on a shiny email that was for a surprise party, and it looked great, and I clicked on it, it got hacked, it sent to 25,000 people in my contacts. Stupid mistake. Note, don't click on shiny things that look suspicious. Okay. A couple days later, I got an email from Kelly Corrigan's personal Gmail. Now note that when I hosted her last spring, I was communicating through her agent and publicist and her @kellycorrigan.com, so it was a little suspicious to get it from Gmail. And I had to think about it for 24 hours. Do I click on this shiny thing that looks suspicious? And I did it because it was worth it, and here we are. So her email said, I have an idea I want to run by you, and this is it. You know Kelly from her PBS show, her podcast, her TED Talks, and her multiple best-selling books. She's also a really good hugger. She does what my mom says, we squish hearts together. Claire is in her last year at the University of Virginia. She's double majoring in computer science and drama, and she's a stand-up comedian. I met her for the first time today, and the apple does not fall far from the awesome tree. It is with great pleasure that I introduce to you my friend, because she gave me her Gmail, Kelly Corrigan, and her co-author, Claire Corrigan Lichty.
Just in case there's even one person here who doesn't understand how important a family like this can be to making a community a special place to be, bringing people through town, not once but twice, discovering new venues like this one, sort of very casually putting together a really lovely night for all of us. So I just want to give them a big round of applause. And a big your son's going to come here straight from a baseball game. We're going to want to know the score. How'd it go?
5-6. We won.
Yeah. That's some good news. I'm really not I just put you on the spot and then make you have to tell us that you lost. So maybe I should have checked on that before I put you on the spot. Okay, so the reason that we're here is because we have been working on this children's book called Marianne the Maker, and it put us in touch with all of this expertise and analysis and research around the power of making. And really, I don't think it's overstating it to say that we have come to totally believe that making is fundamental, like non-optional part of well-being and societal progress. So it sometimes gets mischaracterized as a nice to have luxury for time-rich people who have an artistic bent. But that's not at all what we're suggesting tonight. We're suggesting that it's baked into us, all of us, whether we consider ourselves artistic or not, and that mindset, that maker mindset, once you've experienced some successful projects over and over and over again over the course of a life, teaches you that you can construct and deconstruct and reconstruct the world around you, and that's really important for societal progress, that people feel that deep sense of agency that making offers.
And this is not just coming from an awesome lady and her super cool daughter. But this is coming from people who are much smarter and more informed than we are. So everything we're going to share with you tonight comes from art therapy programs that have been developed, tested, and implemented over many years by the Department of Defense Creative Services Program, Save the Children's Heart Program, both of which we're going to be going into a little bit more later.
And then also, I have, through the podcast and through the PBS show, been able to interview Frances Collins at the National Institutes of Health, a woman named Denise Pope. Do you know what Challenge Success is? Have you ever heard of it? It's sort of recasting what the idea of success is for young people who are from places where it seems like success is narrowly focused on where you go to college. That seems like a real rumble there. Maybe you might be familiar with that concept. And then medical education curriculum is totally changing, so a person I've gotten to talk to about that is Alice Walton. She's one of Sam Walton's kids, and she is creating a medical school next to Crystal Bridges in Bentonville, Arkansas, and trying to integrate the humanities into medical education for better health outcomes. And then finally, I've gotten to talk to Vivek Murthy, who is our former Surgeon General, a couple different times now, and all of that has gone into what we're about to describe.
And in addition to that, all of these books, which I would definitely check out. I'm a Gen Z, no attention span girl, and I was wrapped by Your Brain on Art, which is the biggest influence for us, by Susan Maxman and Ivy Ross. Susan is a neuroscientist at Johns Hopkins, and Ivy runs a design group at Google, and together they came together to create this work about how our brains are influenced by creative processes. We actually got to interview them a few months ago, and their work has been widely recognized and supported.
And then one of the most striking things that Susan and Ivy said to us is they spoke in front of 500 school superintendents. And at the end they said, and this is the quote, "Denying kids something they need to be healthy is a form of abuse and neglect. The biology is that clear. And when we frame neuroaesthetics as baseline, not luxury, table stakes, not extracurriculars, legislation will follow. Legislation that takes us backwards to a time when home ec and shop class and choir and orchestra were built into the daily lives of students." And I wanted to add that since we made this slide, I flew across the country and I read a book called Shop Class as Soulcraft. Has anyone heard of this? No? It's by this guy named Matthew Crawford. So interestingly, this was a kid who really hated school for a minute. He started being an electrician's apprentice in middle school, all through high school, all through college. And then he had a really high aptitude for academics, and he ended up at University of Chicago getting a PhD in political philosophy. And then he came out and went to run a think tank. And 4 months later, he said, "I can't stand this. It's all talk, no action. I need to do things with my hands to make things happen." And so he started a motorcycle repair shop. But the point that he made, which I think is so interesting, is that there was this moment where we made this a natural separation between thinking and doing. And the point he wants to make is that all cognitively rich experiences, which is what we should be offering our children, which is what we should be baking into our own lives, which is what we should make sure employees have, involve both. Oh, and the funny thing is he said thinking without doing was why he left the think tank. So the things on offer here, in terms of this making thing that we're promoting, the first first is well-being. So you could just say you're gonna do it for the neurochemical bubble bath. So that is to say that we have access to free, non-toxic sources of serotonin and dopamine and norepinephrine in our own internal pharmacy. And making, which involves monotasking, also lowers cortisol. And this is what the DoD has discovered, the Department of Defense has discovered in their creative services projects, is that they can, for veterans, for instance, put them into artistic experiences that are as effective or more effective than other forms of therapy and medication to get them back into civilian life, which has huge economic benefits, huge well-being benefits, huge benefits for the families of our veterans. So do it for the well-being.
Another thing on offer here is increased intellectual capacity. So I'm gonna take everyone back to AP Bio or fast forward some people forward to AP Bio. So every neuron in our brain is this long cell, and the main part of it is called an axon, and that's what all the electrical current runs down. And around the axon is a thing called a myelin sheath, which essentially works as insulation to help that electric current move quicker. And when we make and when we engage in creative acts, that myelin sheath gets thicker. And so that leads to making our neural pathways more efficient, strengthening our neural connections, protecting our nerve fibers, and then also helping coordinate all of our different brain regions to work better together.
So you can do it for the myelination.
Yeah.
So
How's your myelination looking today?
Yeah. Then there's flourishing. So flow, the idea of flow. Yes, no. It's like the state where you're so engaged in something you forget to go to the bathroom. Speaking of flow. And she's the stand-up. But this other thing that Matthew Crawford said that I thought was really interesting was that manual work forces us to reckon with the physical world as it is. So like a chef has to deal with the fact that kale has that big, thick, awful spine. Or a fashion designer has to deal with the nap of fabrics, or the way fabrics change when you wash them. Or guitar players have to get calluses on their fingertips. Carpenters have to deal with the fact that wood shrinks and swells. And reckoning with the physical world and managing around it and understanding how it plays out on us is an incredibly empowering experience. And so Crawford thinks, and I totally agree with him, that it makes us feel less vulnerable in the world to understand how it works. And one of the best ways to understand how the world works is to engage with it in these kinds of making activities.
So speaking of engaging with the world, another thing on offer here is connection. So I'm in college right now, which is super fun, thank you, but also can be really lonely. And so one of the things that me and my friends have started to do to try to connect with each other better is instead of just sitting around with completely unstructured time, or like, tell me everything, is getting like clay or paint or just like markers and paper and drawing while we connect. And this works twofold. One, a small distraction can make it much easier to have difficult conversations with people. And this is not just Claire was in college and had an experience story, but this is backed up by science, don't worry. And two, you can't be on your phone. And so 30% of kids' waking lives, or about 6 hours a day, are spent on phones, or on screens. And before the adults clutch their pearls, that's 40% for adults and 50% for adults over 50. And so when we engage in these creative acts where our hands are busy, we can't be on our phones. And so do it for the connection.
Right on. Denise Pope, the Challenge Success lady, told me, per Claire's point, that in Narcotics Anonymous, they tell people when you're about to have a difficult conversation with someone in your family to pour out a puzzle and do the puzzle while you're trying to have the conversation. Sort of reminded me of my husband's dad took him driving to tell him about the birds and the bees. Like, there's something about a little distraction.
So we've been referring to making as a pretty broad term, but what does making actually mean? It's not just finger painting and knitting, but...
We went too far. Oh, here we go.
have children and rehearsals and doctor's appointments and spouses you need to fight with over how to properly load the dishwasher. And willpower is really limited. It's something that I've learned in therapy. And money is limited and time is short. And so how can we reduce the friction between making and not making? And so we've come to the conclusion to be really creative about how we're making space for creativity. Tools make the best gifts. Recycling is as good a material as anything. The corner of a room can be your making lab. Rotating items in the bins can serve as inspiration. And I just want to point out, we are all inches away from making every day. If you've ever made a bed or arranged pillows on a couch or dino nuggets on an IKEA plate, intention is what can turn things that we recognize as chores into things that Ivy and Susan would call small C creative acts. So in that vein, I want to present you all with 10 ways that I make regularly as a broke and busy college kid. First, I cut and dye my own hair. I know that is a high stakes making for some of the people in this crowd. Don't worry. 2 years ago, I bought a chunk of modeling clay that just sits on my desk, and I will play with it when I'm feeling stressed.
And she makes noses with it.
I do make
like
noses.
A row of noses.
Yeah, super cool and creepy. I do stand-up comedy. I'll knit. I make birthday cakes and most of my own meals. I make my bed every day. I pick out outfits, some of which do not always work. I write code as a computer science major. I write plays as a drama major. And I write kids' books with my mom.
And I make in this variety of ways. I too cut and dye my own hair. I sew clothes or window treatments, sometimes with patterns, sometimes without. I have made small pieces of furniture, like benches and little bookcases. I puzzle all the time. I have a 1,000-piece puzzle going almost all the time. I write books and essays and op-eds for the New York Times. I podcast 3 times a week, and I write kids' books, sometimes with my daughter. The thing that's interesting here is that excellence is not a requirement. Like, in order to get all the benefits that we've promised you, you don't have to be talented, you don't even have to be proficient. And that's so rare that you can get the outcome you're looking for without having this sort of deep expertise. But that's the thing, it's not really about the outcome. It's really in and of itself for its own purposes. And do you know Buddha boards where you paint and then it just dries up? It's like that, and I'm always thinking about that when I'm trying to make something poorly. Like, I just went to a community kiln in Bozeman where I live half the year, and I was making some terrible pottery, and it just went totally awry. And the woman nicely said, "Would you like us to fire this?" I heard her. And I said, no, it's just in and of itself satisfying. But also notice, I'm working on this AI project for TED, and fingers and hands are really the last bastion of human exceptionalism. Like, it's the thing the robots can't do yet. So enjoy your dexterity.
So I'm part of what someone decided to call the anxious generation. So it goes without saying, I'm in therapy. And one of the things I've learned in therapy that is backed up by what we've learned from Susan and Ivy is that the opposite of an anxious mind is a noticing brain. So taking notice of the way our bed is made, or the way our feet feel in our socks, or how the books are lined up on the shelves, or beautiful light fixtures, really helps ground us in the world and can lower levels of cortisol. So they found that when we are beholding, when we are taking stock of how the world is, we're getting a lot of those same benefits that you get from making.
And I think, like, stopping and pointing and getting good at saying wow is as powerful as making. And then the other thing I feel is that, like, parents who say wow have kids who say wow. You know, it's only a matter of time.
I can speak to that because every time I'm in a car with my mom, happened multiple times on the drive here, and there's a sunset or a mountain or a tree or a sky. Stop! Claire, would you look at that? Look, look! I'm looking. But then as soon as I'm not with my mom and I'm with my best friends, I'll go, stop, Allison, are you seeing this? Even though I groan in the moment. So even though we're groaning, we're still listening.
All right, so we brought some things for you to behold. You can behold me not being able to turn the side. Okay. Okay, so this is this crazy thing I found on Instagram for you. It's like a person who made this out of everything he found, and then he set it up on a little tree stump, and then he left it there for people to come upon and discover. These are some ladies with this incredible yarn, and maybe a couple glasses of wine over there. This clever person is making all these designs in the snow with his umbrella. This person paints a card a day. They just take a playing card and they turn the hearts or spades into something else, so they're turning it into a little badminton. There's a town, this is like in Antwerp or something, where people are just filling in all the cracks in the pavement with Legos spontaneously, and then they walk away. And then there's sort of grand scale Burning Man type projects, and this is another European country where they were celebrating making. Okay, so now we want to make 2 more points, and then we're going to read you Marianne. So if you didn't come in convinced, let's assume that you're with us now, that you think that it's good for well-being and you think it's important for societal progress. The trick is, how do you bake it into your life? And my favorite line around making is, inspiration is for amateurs. That you have to plan for it. And so, like Claire said, you have to dedicate a corner of your house, and you have to let it be immersive and unstructured and unobserved and unjudged. And still, you might find that you're a little bit stuck.
So, Ivy and Susan offered 2 suggestions. One, find a sensory cathedral. The best sensory cathedral is nature. Nature is the most neuroaesthetic place there is. It touches all of our sensory systems. Temperature, light, sound, color, the pheromones that different trees send each other, we become blanketed in it. So what they recommend is forest bathing as a means of shaking loose some of the making that we have in us.
And this is why hospitals, more and more across the world, are finding budget to create walking paths and gardens, because they can send their patients out there and they can come in and they can measure them, and their blood pressure is lower and their cortisol is lower. Like it's that known. And then if you can't find a sensory cathedral, you could make one as a mom. So you could sort of work through your list of the senses in your own head and think. I mean, I picked the word cathedral on purpose because I grew up Catholic, and those Catholics really know how to turn on the senses. So high ceilings, low lighting, the smell of incense, organ music, singing together, all of those things have huge impact on your vagus nerve, which is the thing that makes you feel all these groovy feelings. And so I used to do that with the kids, where it was like, oh, I'm gonna put on some music, and I'm gonna light some candles, and I'm gonna put out some hummus and carrots, and some meat snacks, because I was on a paleo kick.
Or plain tofu with salt.
Or plain tofu with salt. But not meats from a can. But anyway, that's not why we're here. That's not why we're here, Claire. Okay, so now we'll introduce you to Marianne. Marianne loved to build new things with tape and wire and dreams and strings. But today she had a soccer game, and for that she had her dad to blame. He signed her up, as all dads do.
I love this sport, and so will you.
The whistle blew, her stomach ached. The soccer thing was a big mistake. She tripped and stumbled on the field, all the while her mind cartwheeled. Distracted in goal, left wing, and center, inside she screamed,
I'm an inventor!
With crayons, she sketched a clever scheme of a doohickey she saw in a dream. Nothing could snap her from her zone, till her dad said in a weary tone,
Marianne, it's time for soccer whether you like it or not.
She did not. To escape from soccer
So frustrating.
and get back to work,
More creating.
Marianne would need a plan. She gave her bedroom a quick scan. Earlier that week, she'd seen a movie that taught her a trick so sly and groovy. When it came time to put on her cleats, she licked her palms and did repeat.
My tummy hurts as if I've eaten mold. My hands are clammy, weak, and cold. I cannot possibly take the field today.
And so her father sighed.
Okay.
The trick had worked. She limped down the hall and drew a bath. She checked the towels and did some math. Grabbing her mother's old crochet and streamers left from a birthday, she devised a plan, wild and crazy, to fly with her dog, Patrick Swayze. And with her stolen afternoon, she'd build a type of strange balloon to fly through weather, clear and hazy, safe and sound with Patrick Swayze. But what to call this fine invention? She gave the question her full attention. It improved her day and mood to boot.
Oh wait, that's it. A noodle boot.
Step one of any noodle boot is to engineer a parachute. To start, she'd had to knot and knit, pulling the basket close to fit. To communicate among high winds, she took some cans made of tin, and with some string and a couple knots, she made a way to call the shots. On a dangerous quest, it has been said, she'd need a helmet atop her head. So into the kitchen they both crept to borrow a bowl.
It fits perfect.
Next to the pantry to get some snacks for who could say when they'd be back. A moodle boot can go quite far.
Nutter butters, a protein bar.
She double-checked her screws were tight, and then she shouted with delight. The moodle boot was now complete.
This creation of ours just can't be beat.
The winds were too low to run a test if she were to find what's west of west. So she grabbed Sun Chips and Oreos and put on one of her favorite shows. Just at that moment, in came her dad, eyebrows rising, looking mad.
Marianne,
He said.
you're eating chips. Are you sure that you are really sick?
He felt her head.
You have no fever.
He checked her pulse.
It's nice and even.
And then he asked, as if to break her.
Marianne, are you a faker? I'm so sorry.
She then cried.
I hate soccer, so I lied. But I created something grand, an invention to travel across the land.
She showed him the cans and parachute and all the elements of her moodle boot.
I'll fly across every town, field, and acre, for I am Marianne the Maker.
Her dad ran inside, then out quite fast. He hoisted a flag up the mast.
That's awesome.
Marianne declared.
And if you don't feel too scared, maybe you could make with me? I would love to.
He said with glee. And so they tinkered, toyed, and tied, two brave inventors, side by side. And on this afternoon momentous, her dad became her new apprentice.
So you probably noticed that Marianne lies. Story time, when I was in middle school, I played lacrosse, and my sister played lacrosse, and my mom had played lacrosse, and all my aunts and uncles played lacrosse, and I hated it. And I didn't want to play anymore, but I didn't know how to talk to my parents about it. And so what I did instead was lie about having a knee injury through one MRI and countless sessions of physical therapy.
12, it was 12, I counted.
Yeah, so did United Healthcare. I think it's like a good time to just remind yourself, whether you're a kid or you're a grown-up, that sometimes it can be difficult to tell the truth, and sometimes it requires a little bit of courage. What I wish I could tell my middle school self is, just tell your mom you don't want to play lacrosse. I don't think she's gonna care. Yeah.
So if you're an adult, maybe this is your chance to ask, is there something you're doing that you're doing just because you think we want you to do it? Or is there a way you would rather spend your time than the way we've kind of got you signed up for things? As Denise Pope from Challenge Success told me, kids never lie or cheat about something they love. So read the room.
Another thing you might have noticed is that Marianne's dad learns to follow. I know as a kid, and even as an almost adult, it can be difficult always feeling like you're taking in information, and that it can be, on the other hand, it can be really empowering to teach your parents something. So, don't be afraid to teach your parents something, and if you're a parent, don't be afraid to learn from your kid.
Yeah, nothing's more emboldening than getting to lead as a kid. And Denise Pope, she teaches soon-to-be teachers at Stanford in their master's program, and a big thing she emphasizes is 100 ways to show what you know, rather than just the typical ways of passing a test or writing an essay. You could make a map or an infomercial or a flowchart. And I think that the same goes for what people are making. They're showing you so much, and you have to learn to read the new material as a way of gauging where they are and what they're thinking about and what they worry about. And it's very revealing. It's like the veterans at the DoD, they go through this program where they make masks. And it's easier for them than describing in therapy how they feel about their service. And it's almost identical to what Denise was saying to me, which is that people will find different ways to show you what they know, but it requires that you be receiving, that you be scanning for different messages and reading between different lines. Also, like beyond the bonding, like we should be making. So everything that's available to our kids through making is also available to us. Like our cortisol will lower, our serotonin will start pushing.
Another thing you might have noticed is it is on purpose a little bit messy in Marianne's room. It's called a brainstorm for a reason. It's a tornado of thoughts and ideas. Most ideas will not work, and a lot of them will make a mess. And getting good at processing that mess and getting good at the process of coming up with ideas is the goal. Experiencing low stakes failure is really invaluable. I know as a kid, having space that I can leave messy for long periods of time was really useful.
And I sort of feel like it reveals your values as a parent. Like you can say what you care about, but if you're like really comfortable leaving a big pile of mess in the corner of your kitchen for 2 weeks while they figure out their decoupage, that's what you really value. You know, you're speaking volumes there. Okay, I wanted to say something about Save the Children. So we're doing a really cool project with Save the Children. We're longtime donors to the organization, and they have something they've been doing for over 10 years now called Healing and Education Through the Arts. It's in schools and youth centers. They also do it inside people's homes. And it's based on decades of global research, and it's really making, not as a way of processing trauma, as you see with the DoD, but rather as a way of building emotional resilience, of giving kids a thing they can do to process their lives over and over again over the course of their lives, the things that we could do as adults to process our lives. And so for every pre-order, so the Paskins have bought 1,000 copies of Marianne the Maker. And we will also give a copy to Save the Children to give to kids. And it's a very big deal for a poor kid to have their own book. It's very rare that they have belongings that they get to keep just for themselves. So you did a good deed twice over, Sarah Paskin.
So if you like what we had to say and wanted to learn more, some of you might know that my mom has a podcast. She releases a new long-form interview every Tuesday. And so together we developed a series on making with makers of different kinds. The first episode with Ivy and Susan came out last Tuesday, where we talk a little bit about the science behind making. The next episode with Pete Docter comes out next Tuesday. Pete Docter is the creative director at Pixar. He also is the director of Inside Out, Monsters, Inc., Up. And
It's an Oscar winner, and the day we went, I had no voice.
so
And I was
it's,
like, I'm Kelly, this is Claire, she's gonna interview you.
it was just me. So, we also have an interview coming out with Meredith Scardino, who is a screen film writer. You might know her from Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt and Girls 5 Eva. She also worked with Stephen Colbert for a really long time. We also have an interview coming out with Hank Green, who you might know from Crash Course or the Vlog Brothers. He works with
Have you ever heard of Hank Green?
Yeah.
John Green is his brother, the Faulkner Stars guy.
Also super popular on TikTok. And then we have an interview with Ed Burns, who is an actor. That one my mom did on her own, so thank you for that.
Yeah, he's Brothers McMullen, but he's also written and directed and starred in 20 other movies.
And then lastly, Ray Wilson, who you might know as Dwight Schrute from The Office, but he also is the founder of Soul Boom and was in 6 November.
So those are all coming up. And then we encourage you to stay in touch with us. But now we're going to move over there and just talk to you and take questions and ask you questions and all that kind of stuff. So thank you. Hi. Doesn't it feel so different now that we're over here? Who has a question? We're drinking straight back.
So what brought the two of you together to do this project?
Childbirth really brought us together initially.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, there was a couple rough years there, like from 11 to 14, but I think we came together at the end.
Yeah. But tell the story of how this came to be.
So I've been babysitting since I was 13. So I do a lot of work with kids, and I read in Charlottesville at school. I would babysit like 10 hours a week, so I was probably reading 20 kids' books a week. And my mom had a contract to write a kids' book, and she submitted her proposal, and the publishers did not love it. And she was.
It was the first time that I got back like, and I was like, what do you mean,
She's a star. So she came back and she phoned on the table. You're not going to believe what they said. And I said, okay, well, I read a lot of kids' books. I'll take a look at it. And I read it, and I kind of agreed with the publisher. And I think as a bit of a dare, my mom was like, go try to write something better. I dare you. And I was bored, so I was like, okay. And so Marianne the Faker was a story my parents told us when we were really young, which was like, don't tell lies because then that's bad. And so the concept of Marianne lying about being sick to go to soccer practice was something that like you had told us as kids. And then I kind of took that and ran with it. We do have a friend whose real dog's name is Patrick Swayze, so that's...
And we just surprised him.
Yeah, we did not ask permission.
Yeah.
And
when you get it, you'll see that he kind of has, the dog has like a little Patrick Swayze.
So then I presented her with the first draft of Marianne, and I was like, see, it rhymes, there's a character, I'm just... And I mean,
Claire was right on all counts. Like, it didn't really, my story was about yet and someday, and how if you add them to the end of any sentence, those make everything better. You know, like you can't ride the Ferris wheel yet, or you can't have a sleepover yet. It just kind of softens everything. But it didn't have a main character. It wasn't that fun to say the words. It wasn't that fun to listen to the words. And then it didn't really have an arc. It's just like the same thing happened on every page. There was something you wanted that you couldn't have, and then you added yet someday to it, and it was better. And then it just kept happening for 16 pages. And so it was kind of understandable that they didn't like it, and it was kind of understandable that Claire But the funny thing you left out is that I have an older daughter, Georgia, who's now an investment banker at JP Morgan, and when I said, well, you should try to write it then, I mean, if you think you could do it. And then Georgia was like barring the door, what are you gonna pay her? And I was like, I don't know, I gotta see the work first. She's like, go ahead, Claire, I'll negotiate this. And the negotiation was made, let me tell you.
And it's good because she was someone I was negotiating against for large portions of my childhood.
Yeah, amazing to have her perspective.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Did you have a question?
I think I forgot the question now. I think it was like, whose idea was it to write the book first? So that's kind of similar. You've already answered that. But I wanted to say, you know, what you said just now, telling us the story about writing kind of a terrible book. I think that's what you said. Like, you wrote a book that wasn't terrible, but nobody wanted to publish it. Is that fair?
Yeah.
You know, I'm allowed to say it was terrible, but I'd rather you not say no.
Well, I think reading something, I did listen to most of the talk last night that they sent us in an email, like listen to your talk with Amy and
Susan and Ivy, yeah.
Stephen, okay, those people. You know, you mentioned about getting into photography.
Yeah.
And then like how it didn't really stick.
Yeah.
Stick with it, it got hard. And I think that, I don't know about y'all, but I don't really feel like I'm a big creative person, and it's always kind of bothered me. Like, I knit, but I don't really make like complicated knitting. I knit, you know, prayer shawls and things and Afghans from when I was in my 20s. And I think it was just inspiring to hear you give that story about the photography. And then maybe there was something else, I don't know. Because like, you know, when you came out of the gate, your first Tell Me More was with Brian Stevenson, and I happened to see it the first night, and I was just laid out because I already loved him so much. And I just feel like, I don't know how you stumbled into that, but now it's 7 seasons, you know? And so now you've done this book, which we just got to see, and I want to give it a big round of applause. But I want to say that today, kind of by accident, I am a grandma without kids. I'm sort of a babysitter sometimes, and I got to spend 2.5 hours with a 2-year-old, 2 years and plus 3 months, who didn't have his nap. And when his mother left, she's like, it doesn't really work for me when he doesn't have a nap, and good luck, you know, maybe you want to put him to sleep. And he's so delightful, and he had me drawing today with him. Like, I didn't know we could do that. I mean, I spent quite a bit of time with him in the last maybe year and a half. And it was funny because at some point I thought, oh, where are you going tonight? You know, like, it's just such a confluence of things. And I have to say, for all you parents out there of young kids, like let it rip, because not only did he have this book that he had, and he had some sort of magic markers that are for 2-year-olds, and then crayons, and he went and threw the white one in the trash. Like, I didn't really realize what he was doing, but later I fished it out, and I'm like, oh, he threw the white one away because like it didn't have a color, right? And he's like, this is trash.
Yeah.
But it was really, he made me draw, like you draw. And then I did this thing where I was tracing my hand, and he wanted me to trace his hand, and it tickled. I'm gonna just talk for a minute about this because it blew my mind. Because I'm coming to this tonight, Marianne the Maker, and I realized how valuable that was to play with this 2-year-old and how rare it is. And for those of you who have 2-year-olds or 1-year-olds or 4-year-olds, like, you know, you just already said this. Let them tell you the truth and really follow them. Because after we were in this book and tracing hands, and I thought he was going to take a nap, like let me rock him and read him a story, he pulled out this like, what do you call the thing that you put on stanchion, a flow chart? He has one of those, and he pulled it out from under his crib, and he wanted me to draw more with him. We brought him to the kitchen floor, and I got the kitchen floor, and then, so that's enough. I don't really have a question.
Drawing tools though. I had to recently Amazon myself some what they were called toddler crayons because they work better than normal crayons.
Well, the thing I was thinking about was how good doodling is for you. Like, Susan and I can talk about this, but people who doodle during the day or during a Zoom call or during a session like this, they retain better. They have better analytical skills. Like, it's to your advantage, and so. I think just sitting around with a 2-year-old and tracing your hand for a minute, I mean, I guarantee you, if they plugged you in and measured all your vitals, you would have had better vitals after than before. Sure. Of course. And to me, it's the monotasking versus multitasking. That's when I really feel the difference in my body. Like, I can feel it when I'm reading. when I have to fall all the way into it, like where I'm not reading the same sentence multiple times, or like feeling the pull of my phone, or cleaning up the corner of my bedroom, or putting my husband's boxers in the laundry basket. They're so close, but they didn't make it, etc. But like, so that when I can fall into monotasking, I almost feel like I can hear like the sound of the serotonin drip. Like I've almost created a set of imaginative associations that are reinforcing that like this is it. This is what's happening right now. Like you're in it right now. You're so lucky. And I was just saying to Claire that like my biggest goal right now is to facilitate longer periods of concentration. So just like, could you focus on one thing for one whole hour? And it's very unusual. Like that would be like quite a long time for me.
Setting a timer helps me.
It does to me too, to set a timer. And yes, because otherwise you're sort of wondering. So anything that can offload those thoughts that fly by like shooting stars that are distracting you.
I try to put my phone on airplane mode, and then I'll try to like I'll set like a 6-hour timer. Be like, no one needs to contact me. I'm 21. Some of you guys probably have people that need to contact you. Don't do that. But like all the important people know where I am, and so I'll just turn my phone off for long periods of time. My friends don't like it, but it feels good.
Yeah, it feels really good.
And then you get used to not checking your phone.
Right, you break the cycle.
Yeah.
Because it's like these timestamps that you get used to. You get used to a 2-second timestamp, you get used to a 60-second. I know this because whenever people tell us to do social media to support the book, they're like, and also just make it really short. People like watch for an average of 2 seconds. I'm like, okay, great. I definitely want to participate in that way. Yeah.
I'm landlocked. Can I ask from here?
You may.
Awesome. So some of us have high schoolers who are heading to college soon. Thoughts about how to create a opportunity in college more making versus just getting stuck on screens?
I think for me, I've found it to be like the first 3 weeks of college are crazy. You're meeting everyone, you don't know anyone, everything's a little bit mayhem. And then once things start to like settle down within that first semester, you get a little bit tired of the like doing all the same stuff. So for me and my friends were like ready for a break. We were like, it's a Saturday, I can't have a drink at like 10 a.m. again. And so
Oh my, I never had it saved, so.
yeah. Thank you. And so that was helpful for us, like just to have other people to rely on. I also think that there are like communities with what, like one of the big things we found is that the benefits of making it go up a bajillion% when you're with other people. And so I have this really good friend Lily, and she is super musical, and so I'll like text her like, can we go for a drive and sing? And like we'll just drive around in her car. I cannot sing, but she can sing really well, and then when I start singing, she turns up the volume. But it doesn't necessarily need to be like, all right guys, we're doing wine and crafts. But I think there are a lot of ways to like.
Are there clubs? Like,
Well, so that's what I was
am
gonna
I
say.
the dumb mom who's like, join the, like, Claire did the sketch comedy club.
Yeah.
So that's
Super
making, I
sexy
mean,
and
making
popular.
skits is like it's like
But
the
it is,
most
yes.
fun making that there is. It's like when your kids make up plays.
Yeah. So I think I was gonna say like acapella group, like there are so many different clubs to join, and then just getting outside when they can,
Yeah.
which is.
You started to do your homework sitting outside of your house now.
Yeah, I'll do my homework. That's mostly because I miss getting tan, but also it's just great to. I'll like do all of my work outside when it's beautiful out.
But I always feel like that when, because when you go on the tours, and they're like, we have 860 clubs on our campus. And it's like, really? Like, do people do them? That's so many. And it's just so hard to recreate that in normal life. Like, I feel like I've given a couple of graduation speeches in my day, and I'm always like, you're never gonna live like walking distance to this much action. Like, don't miss it. It's hard to glue that together when you're out in the normal world.
And then also one of my saving graces in college was Camp Kesem. So Camp Kesem is a free week week-long camp for kids whose parents have cancer. And so it's 100% run by college students. I know UCSB has a chapter. There's like 135 chapters across the nation, and you just get connected with people who have really good values, but then the way you make your friends is by like spending a week in the woods. No one can be on their phone. You're constantly like crafting and making up games and like coming up with solutions and super creative. So if your kid is maybe inclined to that, I would recommend that.
Yeah, KESEM.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On behalf of humanity, thank you very much for the book. Father of three, I do creative stuff for a living, so.
You do? What do you do?
Great record.
Oh, fun.
I make stuff like tables for them.
Yeah.
So thank you. This is amazing. I can't get to it with the kids and share it with everybody. Two questions. One, how did you decide to have dad there? And then two, how, if you're not working on this and expanding the possibilities, I'm really curious how much of an impact you think this may or may not have on just positively impacting family growth together.
That's really interesting. Well, you wrote it, so how'd you pick dad, not mom?
Favorite, no. I'm joking. I think you've said this before that our dad was really great at being a girl dad. I know that I have friends whose dads aren't, like, don't know, especially like me and my sister are both girls, so he didn't have a choice. But I felt like he was really good at like meeting us where we were at, and then also being like, we need to go run sprints so we can do conditioning. You know, like he did have the like kind of competitive side too.
Yeah.
But then I started doing stand-up comedy summer after my freshman year of college, and immediately my dad was so in on it and was like as in on it as a dad could be, which is to say that I would be reading my jokes to him and he would just go, funny, clever, funny, not clever. And then,
I'd be like, clever 2, funny 4.
like give me a little rating. But then also,
She's like, he never laughs. He just says
he
the
just
words.
says,
You're right. You're right.
but that's how he engages. But then also was like constantly sending me like clips from stand-up comedians and like trying to like be like, oh, have you talked to this person, and like connecting me with his coworker who did stand-up, and really like dove in on it with me, and that was super awesome.
So he followed.
So he
He
followed.
became your apprentice.
Yeah.
And I had a dad who was super athletic and all-American lacrosse, and I was totally unathletic, if you can believe it, looking at me. And he was so happy to follow me where I led. He thought all my things were so nifty. Like I was always collaging. He sold ad space and good housekeeping, so I was always getting the old magazines and cutting it out and making these scenes, like little dioramas with all the ladies and their ironing boards, pantyhose, and cigarettes. And he just had such a good Lummy, God, look at that, Lummy. So I think it's a gift beyond measure to have a parent literally sincerely take an interest in you and what you're doing, sincerely find you interesting. That's not as common as it should be. And then your second question is, could it have an impact? We really want to make a series, so we really want Marianne to do all kinds of things, like make a mistake and make a memory and make a friend. Yeah. So yeah, Claire even wrote this follow-up one that's really good about trying to make things for a Jewish grandma and a Christian grandma who are coming at the same time, like a Hanukkah tree. And yeah, it's pretty good. I like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
What grade are you in?
Fifth.
Thanks for coming.
So I
I love you. Get that mic. Sing it. Whatever you want to do.
So I have a question about like some people have like a very like stereotypical idea of like making and crafting, and like that like drawing is supposed to look like this. if you were to have like a friend or a family member that had like an idea, how would you tell them that like, oh, this is also crafting or baking too?
Where it doesn't look like sort of the standard.
Yeah, so like you can open their perception.
Wow. Come back. What would you say? How would you answer that question?
That's why I'm asking the question. I have no idea.
You have no answer?
No answer.
I think, here's an idea. Keep in mind, don't have a full prefrontal cortex yet. So, I think a big part of it comes from noticing the things they do that they're proud of. So like, my dad, I don't think would paint under any circumstances, but he loves to cook. And so he'll often make food and then look at his food and go, call the food photographer, which is humble. And I think that noticing the things that look like making and encouraging those behaviors without necessarily being like, I'm encouraging this behavior because it is making.
Yeah.
But just like subtly being like, that's awesome. Do you want to do that again sometime? You know, something like that, like noticing.
Yeah, and I mean, questions are always the answer. Like, I feel like the whole world, like, the biggest problem is nobody's asking any questions. Everyone's talking at the same time. So, I feel like that it would, if you saw a drawing or a painting, let's say, and you just couldn't make heads or tails of it, then rather than saying, you know, oh, are you trying to make a dog? Like, this is how you should do a dog. You should say, tell me about your painting. What do you got going here? How come you picked that color? What's this line? Like, just dive in and ask them. Nothing is more flattering than being asked a question and then a follow-up question. You know? So I think you could just turn on your curiosity and turn on, you know how they say that like one end of the spectrum is curiosity and the other end is judgment? So if you could just slide your meter down to the curiosity end and have no interest in whether it's successful or whether it looks like it should, but more just like, tell me about this thing, I love this thing, tell me.
Thank you for answering my question.
Thank you for asking it. I think you're so great.
Thank you. Can you tell us more about cutting and dyeing your own hair?
Yes, Claire, would you like to start or would you like me to?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was, am no longer in, but once was in an organization called Kappa Kappa Gamma Sorority. And never mind, I can't say that full acronym. But go Kappas. And I was like, I feel like I should be a blonde. And I'm not saying that one is related to the other, but you can put two and two together. And so I went and got my hair dyed, and it cost like $250. And I was like, I can't afford this. So I bought a bleach and developer, and I watched a video online about how to dye your hair. And I just started doing it over the summer, so no one could see me if it looked bad. And then my mom did the length, I trimmed the bangs, I don't know. It's pretty fun.
I started wanting to be a hairdresser in another life. Like what I really want is to have like a bookstore where people can come in and knit and stuff, and then also I'll cut their hair. And then the thing that I mean I've been coloring my hair out of the $9 box like forever because my hair's white. And then now there's the spray stuff. I discovered this spray is like amazing. I think it's what Rudy Giuliani had on his hair when it was like at the Four Seasons, remember that? Remember we thought that was the craziest thing that would ever happen? And so I think it could be that, so you gotta be careful on a hot day. But I do that too.
It's fun. It's also a good bonding activity. Makes me
Yes.
feel taken care of. when my mom cuts my hair. Even though I have several photos of me as a child that are good reasoning why she should not.
Oh my god, we should put one in the deck. There's the one that's particularly amazing. But speaking of bonding, like Edward, my husband, does the back of my hair with like the little teeny brush when I can't reach it, and then it's like I could never feel more loved. Yeah. That's your psychic reward because we don't want to pay you that much. Yay. Yeah. This is a good audience.
It's so hard for me because this is everything I believe in, and it's interesting to be a teacher, especially right this second. But how all those people you talk to all say that baking should be a part of education, and yet every year they take away music, and they take away art, and they take away the making, and they add on and add on. And I try my best to incorporate art every day in my classroom. And how do they suggest what are little ways, or do you learn little ways that we can do that? What were like small moments?
If you Google 100 ways to know what you to show what you know, there's a lot of art baked into those examples, and Denise Pope is like trying like hell to plant that with every new educator that then will go out and propagate it across the United States. And then Susan and Ivy are pretty hell-bent on getting it back in the curriculum. And even Matthew Crawford, the shop class book, who's now interestingly at UVA, I didn't know until recently. He said, of course they cut shop class because it's a huge expense. But now I feel like when you're reading the news, like it's not 2 days don't go by before you read another article that's questioning the value of a 4-year liberal arts education. And then I'm doing this AI project for TED, and so I'm sort of steeped in this idea that like tons of jobs are going away. And so I wonder sometimes the combination of like reading the Crawford book, talking to Susan and Ivy, studying all this AI stuff, and then just absorbing this sort of souring on higher ed, if all that might mean that there's a turning of the tide, where we revalue these fundamental thinking and doing manual mental models.
I think it's interesting because you can't test creativity, and neither does the text. And so I think that that's the part that like our hearts know what we're supposed to do. And so the type of teacher I have been is always that type of teacher. But I've luckily been in a school where they perform pretty well. But I think that there are schools that need it even more than some of the schools that we have because we have the parents in this room that are taking the kids and things. So I think that it's so important to get the schools that are underperforming more of that because that's what they need more than anything, you know. So
You should Google Susan and Ivy, Maximum and Ross with Your Brain on Art, and see where they're going and what they're kind of running this campaign to get it back into public school curriculums. And then the heart thing, the Save the Children thing, is also coming into children's lives from a different angle, where they're catching them in their Boys and Girls Clubs, or Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts, or Little Brothers, Little Sisters program, like all those side programs. They're trying to bake it in there too, but
also, I think one of the things that Susan and Ivy found is that it's, like, we talk about like daily art integration because habits are important, but that in order to see like better test scores, the amount of exposure is remarkably low. But like it's like 3 high, I like don't know what the actual statistic is, so I'm gonna not say anything. But it's like 3 times a year of like engaging with, I don't know if you remember the stat, but I can't, but you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
Like that is like the
oh, that I were young and could remember it all. That's what you're here for. question, yeah.
I love the Ferris Bueller version so much. A lot of us probably saw Jonathan Haidt a couple weeks ago at Anxious Generation, and he freaked out after, and there's this love hate with screens. And I love the moment in the book where Marianne did all these things, and then she put on a show, and she went back to all her things. So this is kind of a double-edged question, but is there a possibility that Marianne could become a role model, or even, God forbid, an influencer, and have her own series where she's exposing kids to project of the day? It's like, I just see my parents, Curious George, and all these things that might inspire kids this week. The screens are there, they're going to show up with screens, and then you're like, oh, just turn it off. Go get the popsicle sticks and do something. So, I don't know, maybe.
So Claire is interning right now for this production company in LA remotely, and the woman who runs production for them was saying, oh, we should make Marianne into a television series. So we can dream. We're game.
We can dream, we can write a pilot.
Yeah. Did you want to ask one question?
I have 11 and 14-year-old girls, little boys. You guys said that it was rough, 11 to 14.
So buckle up.
Get better on its own, or are you saying
Yeah.
Oh, it's a wild ride. You know, it's a little wild ride. It's not that pretty there for a second. I mean, she was a junior and senior during the pandemic, and Georgia was at boarding school in New Hampshire. So it was just kind of it's a terrible stretch. And applying to college as juniors and seniors, no matter how well you try to set things out, you've still blown it. You've still mentioned it too many times. They still know. They were kind of hoping they go to Yale. You just can't. It's very hard to push back against the culture that they're swimming in, and to keep them calm during those years. So it just wasn't a pretty time for anybody in our town, I don't think, really. And then, mothers and daughters.
Mm-hmm. And just because your kid's mad at you doesn't mean you did anything wrong.
Yeah. One time I said, we'll end on this. One time I said to Claire, I know, but what I'm seeing is if we could just talk about it now, because the next time this happens, then you're going to be really bummed out, you're going to cry. And she's like, oh, wait a second. Are you trying to set things up so I never cry again? And I was like, and she's like, oh, because we were going to weep. And I was like,